G'day folks, and welcome to this guide to Operation Overlord Wargames. This is designed for those with an itch to play something on D-Day, the invasion of Normandy, Operation Overlord, the 6th of June 1944, looking for something to play. Now I'm going to structure this in several parts. First of all, I'm going to focus on in-print and or easily available war games. These are games that you should be able to buy right now, either from the publisher's website or your local gaming store or an online store. Then I'll move into other game series that have scenarios or modules or are scenario oriented around the invasion of Normandy. So they might just capture specific moments rather than the invasion as a whole across the 5 beaches in the landing zones for the paratroopers and gliders. Then I'll move in to look at rarer, out of print, harder to find games. These are maybe magazine games or published some time ago and they're just hard to find. You may have to look on the secondhand market, trades, and do some digging to find a copy of these. And finally, I'll briefly look at some games that cover the post-invasion situation. Things like Operation Cobra, the Falaise Pocket, and the broader campaign throughout France in 1944. Okay, let's begin. And I want to start with one of my favourite games of all time, D-Day at Omaha Beach, designed by the AI solitaire master himself, John Butterfield. This was published by Decision Games in 2009 and has since been published several reprints and new editions. It is a company scale solitaire game. So it is you as the American troops landing against this AI driven German defensive force. You begin on the beaches standing against these stationary Widerstand nests, and as you move beyond the beaches you encounter a more mobile German opponent rushing to reinforce key positions. And you need to move your company's infantry, tanks, artillery to seize these key objectives. It all takes place on one 22 by 34 inch map. There are smaller scenarios, but it takes about 3 to 4 plus hours to complete the full battle. And on Board Game Geek, it has a complexity of 3.43. This is all relative, of course. This is all sort of user voted, but I'm showing you this as a general kind of relative guide. Take this with a grain of salt. Secondly, we have a game that I've been playing a lot lately, The Greatest Day, Sword, Juno, and Gold Beach, as part of that grand tactical series. Focus on those British and Commonwealth beaches out to the east. This is designed by Adam Starkweather, published by Multiman Publishing in 2015. Again, a company scale game, part of this broader system. It comes with many maps of varying sizes, but when you put these all together in the campaign, it has a 77.5 inch by 61 inch footprint. So it is a big game and it takes a long time to play. But again, all these variable scenarios facilitate shorter play. So it can take you 30 minutes to play through the smaller scenario, up to 50 plus hours for the full campaign. It has a rating of 4.05 complexity, but a lot of this I think comes from just the size of the game and the density of units and the size of the maps and the footprints. It is hard to get this all together to play. The individual scenarios are quite accessible and easy to get going. And it comes highly recommended from me. Next, we move to Normandy 44, a game by Mark Simonich. It comes with one 22 by 34 inch map. This is a very playable game focused on the Normandy campaign, or all over just this one lovely map. Published by GMT Games in 2010, regimental scale. It will take you about 4 hours. Experienced players might be able to get it done in 3. Newer players, probably 5 to 6. It has a 3.35 complexity rating, but again, very accessible. One map, you've got the entire sort of Normandy region and the invasion beaches in front of you on this map. Very nice to set up and play through. Then we move to the heavier end, and we've got The Battle for Normandy by Danny Holt. This was published by GMT Games in 2009. It is a battalion scale game. It comes with 5 22 by 34 inch maps. I've given an estimate of 20 hours. Now again, experienced players can probably get this done. Newer players probably much longer. It is a monster game. It has a big footprint. It has a 3.73 rating on complexity. So it's a very playable monster. It is of a similar complexity to Normandy 44, but just much bigger. there are more units, there are much more areas to move over. It even looks, because it's GMT games, it looks a lot like Normandy 44, just on a bigger scale. And again, highly recommended. Very, I guess, an accessible monster, much like the next title in the series, Day of Days, part of the Standard Combat series. This one designed by Lee Forrester and published by MMP in 2015. Company, battalion, scale, comes with 4 22 by 34 inch maps, and it has a big footprint again. Lots of units on the board, high counter density and so forth. Again, I've estimated 20 hours. Experienced SCS players can get this done. Newer players will probably take a lot longer. And again, kind of like Normandy 44, this has a 2.69 complexity rating, so it's relatively easy. There's the series rules and then the game-specific rules, but it's a nice introduction to heavier or bigger wargaming. The 4 maps make this look very big, but again, it's very playable. It is easy to get into, and again, it feels like a nice monster to play. I keep using this term monster, but maybe baby monsters or something. They're easy to play. I want to emphasize that ease of playing these games. And then we jump to the kind of the difficult end of the scale. This is 4.88 complexity. This is Joyous Atlantic War, D-Day to Falaise, published by Decision Games in 2014. Company battalion scale, comes with 7 22 by 34 inch maps, and again, a huge footprint. This is probably the biggest and heaviest of all the D-Day games that are currently available. You can purchase this right now from the Decision Games website, for example. It is very heavy. There are a lot of counters in this game, and it has a big footprint. All these things make this probably the most complex and arguably one of the most satisfying of these Operation Overlord games. And finally, the last readily available game right now is Axis and Allies D-Days, and I wanted to include this on the list so that you put this on your radar. Yes, it is part of that old Axis and Allies series designed by Larry Harris Jr. and Mike Selinka, but there are a number of tweaks to the series in this publication that give it a really historic flavour. There are order cards that you draw each turn. You just follow what these cards do, but then you have sort of a strict reinforcement schedule. It doesn't have that kind of economy of regular Axis and Allies. It isn't quite as open. It's more structured and thematically D-Day. It feels like you're sort of playing a D-Day game, not just some generic pasted-on theme. Don't be mistaken by that. So that is Axis and Allies D-Day, which was published in 2004, is still available in many stores. So they are the games that you should be able to access and find and purchase right now if you're looking to scratch that D-Day itch. But there are many others. This is a list of some of those series, either sort of generic series that have D-Day scenarios, or they are relatively new publications that are focused on a series of scenarios. So games like in the top right, Normandy, The Beginning of the End, Frontline, D-Day below that, and further below, Undaunted, Normandy, and Heroes of Normandy, are games that have relatively recently published that focus on a series of smaller scenarios and battles within that broader Normandy invasion. So they don't necessarily cover the entire campaign or the whole theatre, but they focus on smaller, almost tactically oriented maps in the region. And that's the case really for most of these other generic series. So Advanced Squad Leader has dozens of scenarios on the Operation Overlord. They even have a specific Beyond the Beaches scenario pack for owners of the starter kits. Combat Commander has a battle pack focusing on battles in Normandy. Memoir 44 has scenarios throughout their expansions, and then they release a special D-Day Normandy focus series of scenarios. Tide of Iron did the same thing. They have their Normandy scenario expansion. And there are similar releases for Panzerleader. Sergeants has a D-Day release. The Advanced Tobruk series has some Normandy campaign expansion packs. Lochner Tactical has their Heroes of Normandy, and Panzerblitz the same thing with a Carrington expansion. There may be some others as well. So these are, you can play through sort of more focused tactical battles with some of these publications, keeping in mind that in some cases you'll need the original game to play these expansions. Then we have a list of games that cover the post-invasion situation. So they don't necessarily cover the beach. Some of them do briefly cover the sort of immediate invasion, but then they go beyond the invasion. So things like Liberty Roads covers the campaign in France, Mighty Endeavour, the same thing. Cobra, Operation Dauntless, Cobra, the Pocket of Falaise, and Falaise 1944 cover, again, the what's happening after the initial invasion and that breakout and so forth. And France 44 is, I think, Mark Herman publication, which covers the campaign throughout France. Of these, Operation Dauntless is a recent publication by GMT Games, Cobra by Decision Games. These should be available. Some of the older ones like Cobra, France 1944, less so. Which brings me to my last point on out of print and or hard to find games. Some of these are great games. They're just very difficult to find. You really need to do some searching on the secondhand market. And I'll start with Paul Koenig's D-Day series. This is 3 games that he published in 2008, 2009 with Victory Point Games. They are, again, introductory war games for people just looking for a quick D-Day experience. They play very quickly, very light counter density, very small maps. But again, if you're looking to quickly scratch at it, it's several great little titles. Now, The Killing Ground Overlord is published by, I think, New England Simulations several years ago. First, they published The Killing Ground, which covered the second half of the Normandy campaign, I think from around early July onwards. Several years later, they published Overlord, which was an expansion to The Killing Ground. So you need The Killing Ground to play Overlord. And Overlord covered the initial invasion in the first month of the campaign. The following 2, Overlord and Baptism of Fire, are both magazine games, so they're hard to find. D-Day the Great Crusade is another Danny Holt game on Normandy, published in 2004, but again, quite difficult to locate. And I haven't played this, so I can't comment much on it. Omaha is part of the Tactical Combat series, originally published by The Gamers in 1991, really focus in close tactical detail on Omaha Beach. Then you have Bradley's D-Day, an Against the Odds magazine game from 2011. And we begin to get into some of the older games that are hard to find because of their publication date. So The Longest Day, 1979, D-Day Normandy, 1981. Breakout Normandy, a classic and one that many gamers rank very highly. It was published in 1992. It's an area movement game. Really captures the immediate post-invasion situation, but hard to find these days. Lightning D-Day, published in 2004 by Dan Beeson Games, is a card game. It is very light, very introductory. Just focus on, there's 5 little corridors, 5 beaches, and you place troops in these corridors. And again, it's a quick 10, 15-minute game. And To the Far Shore, one of my friends said that this is his favourite D-Day game, published in 1994 and very difficult to get. And I've been looking for a copy of this for some time and haven't been able to get it. It had a mixed reaction. Some people said there were problems with the rule books. Others said, well, once you kind of fudge your way through it, it was an amazing game. I haven't played it yet, so I can't comment. We have Monty's D-Day, Strategy and Tactics, 1985, Normandy, 1971, the original Atlantic War, I think published by SPI, correct me if I'm wrong, 1978, the original D-Day from 1961, and then the Normandy campaign, 83, and Overlord from 1973. This is by no means an exhaustive list. There are many other Operation Overlord Normandy D-Day games beyond this. These are just some of the more common ones, the ones that if you really go searching, you're probably likely to find somewhere. Somebody probably has a copy for sale. There are others beyond this. There are a lot of magazine games, a lot of desktop published games that you can find on Operation Overlord. Hopefully, this gives you a starting point. Hopefully, this has flagged something of interest. And as I said, I've prioritized those first few games that are currently in print. They should be easy to find. I hope you find something that satisfies that itch, and happy gaming.